In today's video, I'll be sharing with you 4 of my favorite print resources for getting started improvising your own sweaters. That sounds like just your cup of tea. Get cozy and let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to the Wool Needles Hands bonus ramble. My name is Taylor, and I will be your host. Now, as many of you know, today is typically podcast day, and though I have lots of knitting to share with you, I wanted to do something a little bit different in the spirit of modification and improvisation, which is kind of where we're going this month in terms of theme and videos and all of that. Today, I wanted to share with you 4 books that I have in my knitting book library that I always reach for when I start to improvise, modify, or put my own spin on a sweater pattern, especially if I'm thinking about trying to design my own sweater knitting pattern, which is kind of what I'm doing right now with the Frankensweater, and you may be familiar with the Frankensweater and the Frankensweater Saga. I'll link to all of that down below in the description box. And the books that I'm sharing with you today are resources that I have been cracking open regularly since the start of this process. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into it. These are 4 print resources that I find to be invaluable when embarking on an improvised sweater knitting journey. I also want to remind you first before we dive into this, if you would like to know my favorite online resources for the very same thing, definitely check out the video that I link down below in the description box, or the one that pops up over here somewhere. That will share with you my favorite online resources for doing this very thing. Okay, here we go. Okay, the first one I want to share with you today, and I've shared this before, this is called Sweater Design in Plain English, and this is by Maggie Roggetti and Terry Shaw. Hi guys, Taylor from the future here. I am dropping in to let you know that it looks like Sweater Design in Plain English by Maggie Roggetti, the version that I show you here, is actually out of print. I didn't realize that. However, I have been Googling the title. You can find it, you can find the first edition, which looks like this. I'll pop it up here. This is older. I think this came out in 1990. You can find that one pretty easily on thrift books or any kind of secondhand online retailer. You might even be able to find a copy of that on Amazon. However, the version that I was showing you with Terry Shaw, that one is a little harder to find. You can find used copies of it. And if you can find a used copy of it, snag it. There will be some bookstores that still have it on their shelves because they haven't sold through the inventory that they have, but it looks like it is out of print as of right now, which is really, it's a big bummer because it's such a great book. So just so you know, I will link down below what I can find, but you might have to do some digging yourself because it does look like it is out of print. But if you can find it, buy it. It's a great one to have in your library. This is an absolute flying creature. This is an absolute masterclass in designing a sweater. If you wanted to get into knitwear design, particularly sweaters, you absolutely need this book. It's not only great, there's a book. It's not only great for knitwear designers, however, it's a great place to go for the average knitter who wants to have a little bit more of a background and understanding in sweater construction and sweater design, so that when they embark on a new sweater knitting pattern published by somebody else, they kind of understand all of the inner workings of that sweater pattern. It's just a fabulous resource. It has in here everything from, it starts you off with what is even a sweater. It gives you the understanding of different types of yarn, talks to you about flattering designs for every figure. It also gives you a place where you can keep track of all your personal body measurements so that you can refer back to that, making changes as you need, time and time again, when you go to knit sweaters or when you use this book to help you design your own sweaters. It talks about choosing the right color, estimating the amount of yarn that you're going to need, getting the right gauge, a refresher course on common knitting techniques, and then it gives you several different actual designs and their patterns and explains the process out as you work through the pattern. It is truly a masterclass. It tells you how to use your measurements. It gives you all of the math that you need to find the appropriate shape and style of a particular sweater. It truly is just a wonderful resource for all things sweater design. On the back here it says, if you want to knit sweaters that look good and fit the way you want them to, let sweater design in plain English come to your rescue. In this latest edition, completely updated and revised for today's knitters, Maggie Roggetti and Terry Shaw share their knitting know-how and good fashion sense. No matter what your knitting level, you can overcome the fear of failure, avoid costly mistakes, and plan and create sweaters that really fit and look terrific. Sweaters that will be worn for many years to come. Topics and techniques include understanding the nature of yarn and pattern stitches, choosing the most flattering color and design, taking accurate body measurements, estimating the amount of yarn you'll need, how to alter printed patterns so they really fit, which, okay, so this one I really love because she does have a whole section in here where she tells you how to go into an actual published printed pattern and figure out all the little details that you need to take into consideration so that that pattern fits you. It's right there in the spirit of modification, letting you know that you're in the driver's seat, and even though all of this information is listed in the pattern, this is what you need to do to make sure it fits you the way you need it to fit. And she's no nonsense. When it says in plain English, she means it. It's really a no nonsense and enjoyable read. I absolutely love it. So if you're thinking about getting into sweater design, or you just want this in your toolbox of knitting resources for when you do decide to modify or improvise your own sweater, you absolutely need Sweater Design in Plain English by Maggie Roggetti and Terry Shaw. Now, the next one I'm going to share with you is one that you probably hear of often when you hear of this particular topic, and that is by the master Elizabeth Zimmerman, and this is called Knitting Without Tears. Now, I have not read 100% of this book, but I can tell you from what I have read, and I kind of read it in piecemeal as I need a particular technique explained to me or a process explained to me. I hunt it down in the book and then I read that section. I haven't read it from cover to cover. I will say that as much as I love reading Elizabeth Zimmerman's writing and her approach to knitting and how empowering it makes you, or I guess I should say how empowered it makes you feel, and how calm she is about everything, and how it kind of alleviates some of the anxieties that come along with knitting patterns and things like that. She's very long-winded, and her books tend to be, they're not broken up very well. So you have long stretches of text, of writing, of, you know, storytelling and anecdotes and things like that. And then there are small sections in between all of that that gives you the information that you need that's much more technical and to the point. And those parts are absolute gold. She gives you insight that is approachable, easy to understand, and perfect for the average knitter. And I'm talking about even like the adventurous beginner knitter. You don't need to be very experienced to be able to take information away from this and put it to use. She is just the master of that kind of instruction when it comes to knitting, and I love it. But you do kind of have to like maneuver your way through a lot of anecdote and a lot of text. And just to kind of give you an example, I know it's pretty bright and it's hard to see, but pages and pages of just long-winded, wordy descriptions of things. And if you're using this as bedtime reading, I mean, that might be just perfect because it gives you a lot of that background information that you can then have when you go research other elements of modifying sweaters or knitting sweaters to begin with. However, like I said, when you really get into the technical instructions, things that actually give you instructions and not just anecdotes and information, it's pure gold. So if you don't have Knitting Without Tears, even if you just get it to keep it in your library for if and when you do decide that you're going to begin improvising or knitting your own sweaters, it's a really great one to have. And also too, if you like reading about knitting and you just kind of like to read stories or anecdotes that also give you insight, this is ideal for that. So I love it. It's like when you go to find a cooking recipe on the internet and you go to a blog and the blogger has this really awesome story about how they discovered this recipe and where it came from, and it's beautiful photography and all of this text, and you just want to skip right by that so you can get to the recipe and make it yourself. if that's the type of person you are when it comes to knitting instructions, this may not be the book for you. However, if you're the type who reads the blog post before getting to the recipe and you love having that background knowledge before you get into the technical bits, this is right up your alley. It's a good one to have, and I love Elizabeth Zimmerman. Okay, the next one I want to share here is one that I discovered a few years back, and this is called The Knitter's Handy Book of Top-Down Sweaters. So I discovered this back when I started kind of my top-down improvised sweater journey with the How to Knit a Top-Down Sweater by Karen Templer that I talked about a couple episodes ago. I got this because it gives you real, to the point, technical information for different styles of top-down sweaters, and then it also provides you with actual patterns that use those particular technical details. So it's not only going to give you the stitch counts that you need and the basic bare bones skeleton of instructions, it's then going to take that and apply it to an actual knitting pattern. Let me read the back of this, and I feel like it does a better job explaining. It says, explore the joy of knitting top-down sweaters with Ann Budd's latest addition to the Handybook series. Answering to a growing interest in knitting sweaters from the top down and knitting seamless sweaters that require little finishing, the Knitter's Hand, which is like all of that is just, it's speaking to me. The Knitter's Handy Book of Top-Down Sweaters offers instructions for knitting 4 basic sweater types: seamless yoke, raglan, set-in sleeve, and saddle shoulder. Anne offers beautiful patterns for children and adults in multiple sizes and yarn gauges, and that serve as springboards for creative expression. That's kind of what's so great about this, is it gives you, so we're going to go to the seamless yoke sweater section. And there's all this information about how to use the book and all of that. Seamless yoke sweaters. Child sizes. I'm going to get to the adult sizes. Schematics. Okay, adult sizes. Let's see if I can turn this. It gives you all the stitch count number breakdown for all the adult sizes. I am going to take photos on my phone here just so it's a little bit easier for you to see. So you get to the adult sizes section here, and it gives you all of the stitch counts, the measurements, the yarn requirements for various different sizes and gauges that you might have when moving forward with this sweater. And then when you go further, it gives you the information for doing your neckline, increasing your yoke, telling you how many stitches you're going to have after you've increased your yoke. And it's all broken down in this grid format that gives you all of the numbers that you need. I'm taking these photos for your guys' benefit, so it's a little easier to see. And then after it gives you all of this information in this column and row spreadsheet layout, which I absolutely love, and if you're a part of the Franken-KAL, you know that, it takes you to the very end, and it gives you options for neckbands, pullover options, cardigan options. It gives you options for the cardigan button band if you choose to go the cardigan route. And then it follows up that section with a series of actual written patterns that follow kind of those guidelines, and that if you wanted to, you could use as a canvas for making your own modifications to make it truly your own and very individual. This book is one of those that you really have to have and look at and hold in your hands to decide if it's something that you could use. I find it absolutely just invaluable because of all of the spreadsheets, I'm going to call them spreadsheets, that it gives you with all of the different values and numbers, and then being able to use those and tweak them and add your own little spin to it with creative design elements is just a really great book to have. It is absolutely handy, as the title suggests. If you have a good knitting book section at your library, see if they have this, check it out, and see if it's one that could help you. I could see where for some this might be overwhelming, but for others, all of the numbers situated in a spreadsheet format with very little, anecdote and written information, that might be right down your alley. So check it and see if it's something that could work for you. But this is, again, the handy book, Knitter's Handy Book of Top-Down Sweaters, and it's a really great one to have. All right, last but not least, and this is the one I'm most excited about right now, and it's the newest one in my collection. This is called Knitting from the Top by Barbara Walker. Let me see a show of hands for all of you seasoned knitters out there that are familiar with this book, because from what I gather, this is kind of like the Bible for top-down sweater knitting, and I guess it only just dawned on me how important this is like last year when I kind of started doing the Frankensweater for the first time, and I was revisiting that Karen Templer blog series because she mentions this book. And last year when I was revisiting that series, I decided to look into this book and see what this was all about. And you guys, it's not even that big. Look at this. It's real thin. It's lightweight. It's just this basic book. It has very little in terms of there's no photographs. It's all written illustrations, drawn illustrations or just black line illustrations. And there is a lot of text here, guys. Okay, it's a book. That's what books have. And I'm not one of those people who has I have a very good attention span and I like to read text, okay? But sometimes books that are trying to give, tips and instructions, you kind of want to just get to the bold print. This is very similar to Knitting Without Tears in that there is a lot of that descriptive anecdotal text. However, I feel like the content here is so much more valuable to me because it covers such a wide range of sweater knitting styles and techniques, and it just has really, intuitive insight, if that makes any sense. The sections that are in this book, you have basic design number 1, the classic raglan pullover. It gives you the reversible boat neck, the turtleneck, the wide reversible collared raglan, V-neck raglan, square neck raglan, raised neckband, round yoke sweater. And it's going to tell you how to develop a knitting pattern for that type of sweater. It doesn't give you a knitting pattern for that type of sweater. It tells you how to use your measurements and your gauge to build a knitting pattern for that sweater. And it's incredibly insightful. Classic raglan cardigan, basic design number 3, seamless cape. Basic design number 4, a seamless skirt, and it's not just sweaters. Basic design number 5, reversible pants. The thing that puts all of these things together, the thing that's kind of the interconnected element, is that everything here is knit from the top down, even hats. Now, I had mentioned on the last episode of the podcast that I am trying my hand at knitting a beanie or a hat from the top down, and I didn't go into too much detail about how I was doing that, and that's because I was kind of saving I wanted to save this book for this video, but this is where I'm getting the information on how to make that hat. And in the next episode of the podcast, I'll talk a little bit more about that. But it is the basic design number 12, the classic cap. And she tells you how to knit the classic cap from the top down. And if you've watched that episode of the podcast, you remember how my increases looked, this little windmill spirally number going on here. She tells you how to create this. And it's so easy, and it just clicks. And it's also just kind of enjoyable to read the way that she describes everything here, because she gets right to the point. She's not quite as storytelling as Elizabeth Zimmerman is. She kind of cuts to the chase, which I like. And it's all just very insightful and ingenious, really. And in terms of sweaters, which is kind of where we're going with this, I feel like what I love most about this is it's not just your basic top-down raglan sweater. She has saddle shoulder sweaters in here. She has drop shoulder sweaters in here. She has a shaped square set sleeve sweater, a saddle kimono, all these different, a yoke saddle shoulder, a reversible saddle shoulder, a simultaneous set-in sleeve. And she's giving you the instructions for developing and building your own sweater pattern with these styles in mind from the top down and seamlessly. And it's just amazing. So this is my favorite one so far. I've been devouring this as I've been working on the Franken-KAL, and it's fantastic. This, in my opinion, of all of these here, get this one, okay? Maggie Roggetti's book is really important to have because it's the masterclass. But if you don't have time for big books like that and you want something that's just going to give you what you need, everything you need and nothing that you don't, this would be the one out of all of these that you should get right now, on Amazon Prime now. This one, Knitting from the Top by Barbara Walker. It is my favorite of all of these. Not only because it encapsulates lots of different types of items, but it really goes into lots of different sweater construction types, all from the top down, all seamless. Well, there you have it, folks. My 4 print resources that I have in my library that are my favorite and my go-tos when I start thinking about improvising or modifying sweaters. Now, I am not a prolific garment knitter. I am not a knitwear designer by any means. However, I do like to dabble. And for somebody who likes to dabble, these are right on the money for what you need. Now, if you want to get into sweater design because you want to be a knitwear designer when you grow up, then definitely get Maggie Roggetti's book, Sweater Design in Plain English. You want that one, okay? And then after you get that one, get this one. But just know, I am not that person. I'm not the knitwear designer. I'm still learning, and these books have been really valuable to me on my road to learning how to, perchance, should I want to design a sweater, how to do that. And I think that's really helpful and really great to pass along to you guys. So I hope that you took value from today's video. And if you did, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. Definitely subscribe and turn on all notifications so you never miss a future upload. And I will see you guys again for Wednesday's episode of the Midweek Ramble. Until then, happy knitting, happy making, happy whatever it is that you're doing. Take care, be well, and I will see you soon. Bye.